This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, hello there, it's Jeff Cutter driving. Welcome you to another sports catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, November the 20th, was a New York Jets icon who seemed to be one of the best pass rushers in NFL history. He played his entire NFL career for the New York Jets from 1979 to 1988. He was a five-time Pro Bowler and he looked good. He is Mark Gastineau, the sack exchange. He was born in Oklahoma. All that. Mark actually showed promise to be a rodeo guy. So he entered to Eastern Arizona Junior College in 1975. And then he would transfer to Arizona State for 1 year before going to East Central Oklahoma State University, aka East Central University. He had 27 sacks in his college career, and he played in the Senior Bowl. And East Central was happy when the Jets took him in the second round of the 1979 NFL Draft. In fact, the first female NFL scout in history was credited with helping the Jets discover Gastineau. Connie Carberg saw him in the Senior Bowl, and they needed another defensive lineman on the squad. So Carberg said that Gastineau should be the replacement in the Senior Bowl. He was projected to be an 8th round pick, but he looked good, and he got a 2nd round pick. New York Jets in the 1st round took defensive end Marty Lyons from Alabama, so that wasn't bad. So the Jets with the 41st pick took Gastineau. He was the 3rd Pro Bowl player to be on that squad, to be in that draft in the 2nd round. Since he took Dan Ross, tight end, Buffalo took Fred Smerlas, the defensive tackle, but Mark Gastineau was picked 41st overall. Gastineau looked good. The New York Sack Exchange was the defensive line of 4 players. Gastineau, his fellow 1979 draft pick, Marty Lyons, Joe Klecko, and Abdul Salam. They combined for 66 sacks in 1981, including 20 by Gastineau. All those sacks were kind of called unofficial, so that was huge. 20 sacks in 1 year, if it was legal. The Jets got to be in the playoffs for the first time since their 1969 championship run. It was named 2nd team All-Pro in 1981. Obviously, those 4 guys, Klecko, Lyons, Salam, and Gastineau, were invited to bring the ceremonial opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. All that. But Klecko injured the patella tendon in his right knee in the strike shortened season. So Gastineau was the new unofficial leader. He did pretty well for himself, finishing with 6 sacks. Remember, that 82 season had 9 of them. And it was voted the NFL Defensive Player of the Year by many things. The Jets made the playoffs and could have won the AFC title against the Miami Dolphins if it wasn't for stupid rain and the fact that the Dolphins didn't really do enough to keep the field from being dry. Anyway, Gastineau in 1983 put up 19 sacks, a blistering 19 sacks. All that. He was known for doing a sack dance. Unfortunately, the NFL decided to make it unsportsmanlike taunting and fined him for it. However, in 1984, Gastineau had his best individual season, putting up 22 sacks, which was the NFL record till one Michael Strahan broke it, but Brett Favre basically helped Strahan do it. He was named Defensive Player of the Year for the AFC. So he was still pretty good and all that. However, new defensive coordinator Bud Carson decided to make it a 3-4 defense instead of 4-3. So that meant that Gastineau shifted on a defensive end. He did pretty good for himself. And the Jets ended up making the wild card in the playoffs. Sadly, though, the Pats took care of the Jets in the wild card game to move on to surprisingly make the '86 Super Bowl. So anyway, Gastineau was featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated before the '86 season with New York Giants star Lawrence Taylor. Unfortunately, Gastineau got injured. He was slow by groin and ab muscle ailments and had a bad left knee. Gastineau came back for the playoffs, making the Jets crush Kansas City in the wild card game, and then they would face Cleveland in the divisional round. And the Jets were up 20-10. That looked good. It looked like the Jets were going to make it to the AFC title game, but a stupid roughing the passer penalty ruined it, and then Cleveland rallied to win the game in double overtime. If it wasn't for for Gastineau's penalty, Bernie Kosar would have had a 3rd and 24 to deal with. And from there, the Browns drove down the field, which cut the Jets' lead to 20-17. And of course, they won it in double overtime. Gastineau said he wasn't guilty of roughing; he was just following through. And of course, people were accusing the referee, Ben Drafe, as a referee who's known to take care of the quarterback. Meanwhile, Gastineau was the only Jet to immediately cross the picket line in the '87 player strike, saying he wanted to play. He needed to pay alimony and all that. Unfortunately, Gastineau and his teammates had some issues. Meanwhile, Gastineau was doing well. He was doing good in the AFC in 1988, and then he decided to retire because he thought his girlfriend, Brigitte Nielsen, the woman who played Sonia in 1985's Rocky IV, claimed to be suffering from cancer of the uterus. The announcement was followed by a search of investigations whether she was telling the truth, and the city couldn't trust Gastineau. Gastineau was the NFL's all-time leader in sacks when he retired. Well, he never came back and all that. So, we don't know what happened and all that. I don't know if she did have that, or was it some kind of stupid move? All that. So, yeah, family relationships. I wonder if she. Well, it was never said about what type of, if she did have the thing. But a lot of people probably think that Gastineau was failing a drug test and he knew he was toast, so he had to retire. Gastineau actually tried to come back to football with the BC Lions in the CFL in 1990. People forget about that. Gastineau was a BC Lion, but after 4 games, he was toast. So it was like, holy smokes, this guy had 7 sacks in 7 games in 1988, and then he decides to retire? He had 107 sacks in his career, all with the Jets, of course. Gastineau would take a career in boxing for 5 years. He knocked out an opponent in the first round, Derek Dukes. But it was found out that Dukes took a dive, and 60 Minutes interviewed people who fought Gastineau and said that they were told to take dives. He ended up losing a boxing match to Alonzo Highsmith, another former player. So he was 15-2-1 as a boxer. How many wins were clean? I don't know. Anyway, Gastineau was married 3 times. His first wife, Lisa, and their daughter, Brittany, were in the entertainment reality TV show, The Gastineau Girls. Gastineau has a son with Brigitte Nielsen, Killian, but he's estranged from both children. And then he was released in 2001 from prison. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail for failing to complete an anger management course after hitting his second wife, Patricia. And Gastineau was a member of the choir at Times Square Church, where he met his third wife, Joanne, in 2007. Unfortunately, health-wise, he didn't do so well. Gastineau was diagnosed in 2017 with dementia, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. He figures that football caused his illnesses and all that. And blames the brain diseases on poor tackling technique. In 2019, he said he was battling colon cancer. So Mark Gastineau now is 65 years old. He's still alive. But for how long, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, the New York Jets had a certified pass rusher, and then he just walked up and quit. Maybe it was a drug issue. That's what I think. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.